This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
You've seen and read my 3 Pillars ebook, and now I'm proud to announce my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and it's now out and ready for reading. This new book of mine is a full-length version of the teachings of the 3 Pillars, and in it I show you how to walk in the integrity of eternal universal laws, in step with the law of attraction to consistently create the life you desire. Now, if you've ever wondered just why you can't consistently manifest all the good, loving, abundant, healthy, and happy things you desire, my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, will reveal the key in how to do just that. Plus, help you build a rock-solid personal foundation that will stand strong for the ages. Get your copy today. My new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Carl Gruber. Available now in ebook and paperback on Amazon.com. Hey, welcome to yet another exciting edition of World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. A proud member of the new ethereal TV network coming soon to your TV. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. Now, since 2018, this show has been on a hunt to discover the reasons why, now more than ever, the people of the world are awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. Consequently, we've heard from some of the world's top experts and some experts not of this world. Now, if that makes you say, huh? Just stay tuned to find out more. Now, before we head off to meet our guests, please take a moment to download a free copy of my short ebook, The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. A book that will help you to build a rock-solid personal foundation for your life so you can live the life you love and love the life you live. Just click the link below in the show notes to grab your copy today. So with that, off we go to meet our guest, Erin Gordon. She is our featured guest, and we're excited to have her here as she is the earthly voice for some of our friends from the stars known as the Arcturians, or as she refers to them as the gang. Erin has she had a relatively normal childhood, but as a youngster, she was always in touch with the spirit world and didn't realize until she was older that this was not normal for most people. Now, as a result, she's always been drawn to psychic, spiritual, and channeling sources. And growing up as an only child, she had a lot of alone time to channel her guides and reflect when the energy of the non-physical friends shifted into something more intense when she was in her mid-20s. This is when the Arcturians made themselves more pronounced as she asked more questions and began to see them in her mind's eye. Now, since then, she's fine-tuned her abilities as a channel, and along with her best friend and partner, Dean Graves, they continue their current exploration of human evolution and consciousness. And I am real excited to have you on the show, Erin. Welcome.
Thank you, Carl. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's fun. I've had other channels on, but what you do, I'm really, really excited to find out about how you came about this. So let me ask you this real quick. Is this kind of a coming out party for you to the public as a channel? I know you do chatting with the Arcturians, but have you been on any other shows?
No, I haven't. This is a first for me. Like I said, with most channelers, it's something that I've kind of experienced since an early age. And just putting the pieces together over the years has taken some time. And I've been guided to many different teachers, you might say, throughout my development of all of this. And I've always been intrigued, as you earlier mentioned, with, things of the psychic nature, channelings. And there was at one point in my 20s where I converse with my guides, and anybody can do this. It's not a mystery. Anybody can do it. We all have guides. It's easy to connect and have a discussion. But I noticed in my mid 20s that that connection suddenly shifted. The energy became a little more intense and a little more strong. And my interest shifted more into channeled sources. And it was almost as if I couldn't get enough channeled material to read because it was so fascinating to me. And it really made sense to me. It really resonated with me. And so from that point forward, I just kept tuning into the energies I was getting and the information I was receiving. And as you could well imagine, a lot of the information that I was getting, I questioned because I wasn't familiar with it. It didn't seem on par with like what I had been channeled with my guides before. It was different. It was almost like talking to your neighbor or like a student, a co-student, and then all of a sudden you're in the principal's office talking to them. And so the information's a little more intense. So I just had to sort of sift through all of that until I became comfortable with it and began to recognize it for what it was. And it was a gradual process. It's not something that happens overnight.
Well, and one more question about the young Erin. I mean, you evidently grew up in a staunch Catholic household, but also in school, and that kind of got you in trouble, right? When you were in Catholic school with the
It,
nuns.
it did, because I had a lot of questions that weren't well received. Because I asked a lot of questions that were outside of the norm of the Catholic dogma. And I questioned a lot of it. I said, well, is that true? Or do you know that? It sounds like a bunch of stories to me. And that was not well received, as you might imagine. And so I got sent to the principal's office and got scolded and got my mom involved. And, but I asked too many questions basically. And so from that point forward, that was even more reinforcement for me to kind of, you might just want to go with the mainstream and not cause too many waves, because it ruffled a lot of feathers and got me in some hot water from time to time.
Well, you seem to be doing pretty well right now.
Yeah.
You turned out pretty well. But so when you're in your 20s and you connect with the Arcturians or they connect with you, I mean, exactly how did that come about? I mean, what was it like the very first time they came through and you were their voice here on Earth?
It wasn't really one particular time. It was a gradual introduction. And the more that I would read about these types of experiences that other people have had, the more it made sense to me. It did, then it became, I didn't feel so, okay, am I making this up? What's going on? This is very odd. The more that I read about other people having these encounters, the more it made sense to me. And then I would start going to channelings by other people, people like, I went to Barbara Marciniak's live channelings. I saw Cryon, other people in person. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the same. This is how it works for me. And so then it made more sense. And then from that point forward, I was gradually led to people that helped me sort of develop this, if you will, and gave me tools and ideas and, different ways to kind of wrap my brain around it. But it's been an ongoing process since I was a child. And it just, it's just not something that happens overnight. It's something that you have to stick with, just like anything that you learn in life. It's not something you just pick up and suddenly you're a master, pianist, or, a grand writer, or, a mathematician. It takes time to develop those skills. This is really no different.
Well, and we're going to hopefully bring in your gang in a little bit here and talk to them. But first of all, maybe you can explain who are the Arcturians.
They are a social memory complex, which is basically a collective of souls that have evolved through the consciousness evolution, where we begin sort of as far away from the creator as we possibly can. And then through our own evolution and releasing of our ego, our sense of pride, our sense of separation from the source, from oneness, as we release that, we become closer and closer to the creator. And as we go through these different densities, we become closer to the creator and we give up our ego and we form what's called a social memory complex, where it's sort of like a large group of people putting aside their egos, their differences, for the greater good of the whole. That's sort of a very kind of juvenile way to put it, but that's essentially what it is. It's just a basic kind of group of souls that have decided that coming together as one and becoming closer to the creator is the better way to go, is the better path to follow. And you realize that your ego, your biases, your prejudices, your likes, your dislikes become less important, and the whole becomes more important than your individuality. Your individuality becomes less important because you see the significance of the whole and becoming closer to the creator.
Social memory complex. I like that, but the general human person, we actually see pictures of drawings of what I guess what humans think Arcturians look like, and most humans would just think, well, they're extraterrestrials, they're a star race culture. I mean, is that true also?
It is true also, but you have to remember that in our particular density and our level of consciousness, we deal with physicality. We deal with things that we can see, touch, feel. If I say, okay, I want you to think of I want you to think of a male, for example, you already have a generated idea of what a male human anatomy figure would look like. Female, same thing. That is how our mind is constructed to think. And so given those parameters, a lot of these beings have to sort of adopt some type of physical characteristic that we can identify them as. Whereas in reality, they don't necessarily, they don't walk around putting on clothes, brushing their hair, their teeth, things of that nature. That they're beyond that. Those necessities are no longer pertinent in their day-to-day life per se, but they do retain some sort of physicalities that we can identify them as. Otherwise, you wouldn't really kind of understand with whom you're seeing, speaking, or talking with. But there is some physicality to each type of extraterrestrial, if you will.
Okay, that explains a lot. So, well, I have one last question for you
Sure.
before we bring in the gang. I read that when you have been ill or injured, they put you in one of their healing chambers called a pod. What was
Yeah,
that?
that's what I call it. It's like an egg-shaped pod, essentially. This is my humor coming forward. It looks like a tanning bed. So when I first thought, I was like, what is this?
Wow.
It looks like a tanning bed. And I go in it, and you're kind of floating, but it's a balancing of your energies to sort of align your physical body and your energies, because you have to remember that the majority of disease is caused by a spiritual imbalance. It's not always a chemical imbalance. It's usually a spiritual imbalance. And so if you can figure out where your blocks are, what your biases, prejudices, your beliefs, your core beliefs that you are holding on to that manifest in physical ways. And so many times people that you hear about these spontaneous healings, oh, I had cancer stage 4, and then it suddenly went away, and everyone thinks it's a miracle. From our perspective, it is a miracle, but for their perspective, it's not. It's merely a distortion of your beliefs. If you're told your whole life that you're dumb, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you believe it, that becomes so ingrained in you, you don't know any different. So your ability to get beyond that is very difficult. And so any challenges that you face, you think you've gotten over it, you think you've gotten this, that, or over that hurdle, but you haven't. And so the same goes with anything. So you kind of hold on to that, and that drags your energy down, and that can manifest as physical illness, whether you think ill things about yourself, others, your inabilities, abilities, things of that nature. It can manifest as illness. So oftentimes when people are physically ill for a long time, they are forced to physically sit still and analyze what is causing their illness. And that happened to me. I was sick for a year and a half, and I was trying this and trying that and looking outside of me to heal myself. When I finally sat down and evaluated my belief system and my guidance system, and oh, you know what, that's not right, and really looked at my ego, I got better. My physicians, my specialists, they couldn't figure it out. They were baffled. My labs went from off the charts ridiculous to completely normal. And they're like, we don't know what happened. I'm like, well, aren't you the experts? Well, we don't know what's wrong. So that's just one example, but you hear of this, and that essentially, from my perspective and from what they've told me, is that once you analyze those beliefs and those sort of core values that you hold that are holding you back, until you recognize and release those, you're going to be stuck in whatever destructive pattern you may be in, whether it's mental, physical, whatever it may be.
Wow, I'll tell you, I am the facilitator of a very large Power of Eight group that is on Facebook. We have almost 1,700 members from around the world, and I agree 100% with everything you said about healing and the cause of that. So, well, Erin, thank you. This is
Okay.
awesome. We'd like to chat with the gang, your friends, the Arcturians, and if you would be so kind to bring them in and honor us with the ability to talk to them.
Okay. Just give me 1 second.
All right.
Hello, our new friend. How are you today?
I am excellent and excited to be able to talk to you.
We are delighted to be part of your program. We welcome you in the love and the light of the Infinite One Creator, and we are delighted to be of service to you and your listeners on this day.
I love that greeting. I love that greeting. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear that on a daily basis from my fellow humans.
That would be very wonderful, would it not?
Absolutely. Speaking of humans, why did you choose this human, Erin, to speak through to humanity?
This was a pre-incarnate agreement that she has been working on in multiple lifetimes, as you understand it. And so this is sort of, she has been preparing herself to deliver information in this fashion, in this of your time in your history as you understand it. And so this isn't sort of a haphazard, random, oh, raise your hand, we'll take this challenge on. This is a long process it takes in order to have a soul that is willing to come forward in this density with its vast difficulties in order to uplift humanity, to remind humanity of their power and of their great potential that has been forgotten over millennia of your time due to your frequent wars, your infiltration from service to self, which are beings that choose to cause harm and extract energy from your beings for their own benefit and manipulate and control the populace. And so this is a long process that she has been sort of training for. As if you mentioned the marathons and the runners that you interact with, you don't just get up one day and run a marathon, you have to train for it. So this is a similar type of scenario.
Very, very interesting. Yes. Well, and you kind of just touched on this too, and forgive me because I have a lot of very large questions, and so here we go. From your point of view, what is the current status of humanity, and what does its future look like?
The current status of humanity is one of choice. You, as humans, have incarnated multiple times in various different roles. You all have been the victim, the perpetrator, and the bystander in every role in between you could possibly imagine. Male, female, different races, different areas on your planet, different geological systems, everything you could possibly imagine. So now is the point in time where humanity has to make a decision as to far as which way do you want to continue on. You've sifted and sorted through all the options that are available to you. Now you have to finally decide, gee, do I want to continue on a path of greater oneness with the creator, continue on that journey, or do I want to continue on a path of a self-serving nature where my own needs, wants, and my own potential gains outweigh that of the masses? And so you see this reflected in your day-to-day news, if you will, throughout your planet. You see vast differences between your governments, your peoples, and their ideologies, and they are becoming much louder from our perspective. You're seeing people acting out in your college campuses. You're seeing the destruction of certain governments are falling apart. Other governments are being put into question. Your long-held democracies are sort of in a fragile state insofar as within your own United States, for example. We use this as a reference that your listeners can probably relate to. A huge dichotomy, a huge pull between, are you going to go this way or that way? And the differences between the two representative parties, if you will, are very different. And so your public is being pulled one way or the other. So essentially, not just within your own country, but throughout the world, all the population is being forced. Which way do we want to go? Are we going to stand up, or are we going to be bystanders? Are we going to continue on this path, this trajectory of our country, of our nation, of our leaders, or are we going to go in a different way? And so now, given the vast global communication that's available, you're no longer isolated like you once were. Whereas, say, even 200 years ago, many people didn't know what was occurring on the other side of the globe. And if they did, the limited information that they got was very filtered. Well, you no longer have those constraints anymore. So now is the time for humanity to finally decide, not only on an individual level, but on a collective level, as to which way you wish to proceed and to further your evolution at this time.
Of course, here on Earth, the internet, which is the biggest breakthrough in technology ever in the history of mankind, is only 27 or 28 years old. And in that time, it has accelerated the ability of the people in power, influencers, to increase their power and influence. And do you see any change in that, or is it going to accelerate, continue via the internet and other unknown technologies?
Well, the vastness of information and the rate and speed at which it is being able to be put out there, per se, is going to continue. This is why it becomes very important for you as an individual to use your own critical thinking and your own discernment insofar as when you hear something, don't take it verbatim as, oh, well, they're Dr. So-and-so or they're President so-and-so, so they must be an expert. This is not always the case. It's been proven to you many, many times and times over. You need to use your own critical thinking, your own internal guidance system to gear you to say, evaluate what you hear, take a pause, look at things from an objective level. We have stated this in many of our communications with Dean and with Erin, that you need to use your critical thinking. You need to take a pause and look at things from an objective level. Don't react to things. And that goes true for any situation in your life. Try not to be so reactionary to things. Try to take a step back, try to put the emotion aside and evaluate the information that you are being presented with. Use your own internal guidance system. Don't get caught up in the different gadgets and gizmos and the different, oh, this is an expert, that's an expert. You don't know until you do your own homework. And so this is sort of the main message that we are wishing to deliver at this time, because with the introduction of new ideas and potentially new alien races that are going to be more pertinent in your day-to-day kind of life that you're not going to be able to ignore anymore, you're not going to have a history to look back on. You're going to have to use your own internal guidance system to sort of propel you forward in your own judgment, decision making, insofar as which way do you want to go with your own life, not only as an individual, but as a collective.
This is very wise and beautiful advice. Use your critical thinking. So you hear
Yes.
that, listeners and viewers, critical thinking. And unfortunately, a lot of people allow their own critical thinking to be blotted out because they're so distracted with things. I am curious, though, how is it that you have the ability to see the future of humanity? Is it because you exist in a different dimension, or is it because you have advanced scientific technology that helps you do so?
We don't see the future nor predict the future. Only thing that we can see in your terms is a trajectory of energy, of a collective energy, insofar as its trajectory, where humanity is at the present of your time as you know it and understand it. The consciousness level at present, given its current trajectory, puts you on a path towards this particular outcome. So that is what we see. We see a trajectory based upon the energy on your planet at this particular time. As you look back on previous channeled sources from maybe 100 years ago, their trajectory might have been a little bit different for humanity. But nonetheless, the trajectory that we speak of and what we potentially see is that based upon the collective energetic level at this time on your planet. This is what we see. We don't see the future. We only see potentials. And we try to make this very clear. We do not say, okay, on this month of this day of your year, on this particular continent, on this mountaintop or whatever. We don't do that. That's not accurate. That's not true, because that can shift based upon man's free will. You can have a sudden change in ideas and ideology based upon your free will. So what we look at is the overall collective energy and the trajectory, or train track, as we sometimes refer to it as where you're going at this particular time.
Very, very, very interesting. Thank you for that. Much needed, much needed. So I'm curious as to the spiritual aspects of what you speak and think about. As myself, a dedicated student of the modern spiritual guide called A Course in Miracles, which states that everything we see, think, and perceive that is not at home in total oneness with all that is with God is an illusion. Now, that would seemingly not only include me and all of humanity, but you also. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, everything is in those terms. You could say everything is an illusion. It is merely a projection of the creator of itself, projecting its own existence, if you will, outward, and getting a reflection of itself back upon what it puts out. And so when you add free will into humanity, then you get all kinds of variants of activities and things that could change. So technically everything is an illusion, because it is an external projection of the creator of itself into endless forms of life as you know it. So everything is relatively an illusion, but ultimately, good or bad, goes back to the creator, because that is the one original source of everything.
When I had Dean Graves on my show a few weeks ago, he came up with a really interesting term I had never heard, the intoxication of free will. And evidently that means that our free will is the origin of our thought of being separate from the creator and thus the creation of illusion, right?
Yes, yes. Free will is the interpretation of being separate from the creator. Free will gives you the illusion that you are an independent, isolated being separate from the creator when that's not true. And your ego helps develop your sense of free will, of your individuality, of your separateness from the creator. And so, in your particular density, and as you move forward, the goal or your sort of evolutionary journey is to release that sense of individuality of self, of look out for me, I'm number one, but to realize that you are part of the one infinite creator. And so to drop those false identities that you bring along with you that make you separate from your neighbor, your friend, your family member, and all of humanity in general.
So the intoxication of free will, the idea of separation extends not just to humanity, but to every seemingly entity and being in the universe, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And as you go through the densities, you gradually release your ego, your sense of separateness, and that is how you start to begin to create a social memory complex when you realize that your own individuality, your own sense of self, your own biases and prejudices aren't as important as the whole. You realize that it is a falsehood, that that is not truly who you are at the core. You are source, you are the creator at the core. So all of these external thoughts, beliefs, and things that you adopt or bring along the way aren't really you. And so you have to start to discard those in order to get back to who you really are. And that is source, that is the creator. That is the goal of evolution.
You know, I think about this a lot, and sometimes I just wish, can't I just go to sleep in my bed and wake up and say, okay, I'm done with that crazy illusion. I'm just going back home to source. That would be great.
Where the fun would be? There would be no fun in that.
Well, I guess you want to call it fun. You know, we do have fun besides killing each other and blowing up planets, but
Well, we hope that much of this might be potentially coming to an end, but ultimately you throw that free will in there, and it can be swayed either way. But ultimately, the current trajectory of the energy that we see it from our perspective is one of choice. And as we have stated, many of your humans, all, if not most, have sort of sifted and sorted through all the different scenarios and roles that they have participated in. And only by participating in all of them can you truly feel and know which one is best for you. And that's your own choice. And so at this particular point, the trajectory of humanity has kind of come to, like, we're kind of at the end game here. So you kind of need to make up your mind to go one way or the other, because the Earth, Gaia, has shifted into a fourth density planet. And so her energy level has shifted. It has shifted to a higher vibration. So those that are still stuck in the lower echelons of third density, i.e. the hating, the killing, the negative energy, is not going to be supported anymore. And so this is why you're going to see more friction within your governments, within your peoples, within your family members are clashing because their energy levels are completely different. So those that haven't raised their vibration, that haven't shifted out of that negative mindset, so to speak, that's a simple way to put it, but those that haven't shifted out of that are going to be irritated. They're going to be irritated by people that have shifted to a higher vibration because it's an irritant to them, because they can't match that vibration. So there's lots of friction and they don't know why. So you're going to see people that are going to be increasingly frustrated and pulling out a gun and shooting their coworker because they're mad. Well, why? They don't know why they're mad. They never acted this way before. Well, this is why, because their energy is no longer compatible with the planet and with those that they are surrounded by. So they're going to gravitate more to people that are more on their wavelength, so to speak. So you will see people, hey, we were best friends for 30 years. Gee, I wonder whatever happened to so-and-so. I don't talk to them anymore. Well, this is part of it, because your energy no longer is compatible. So you are less likely to interact with those people. So they're an irritant to you and you're an irritant to them. So you don't want to spend time with them, because where you used to be very friendly and getting along, well, you've both sort of made a choice, whether you know it or not, and have chosen a different trajectory for your current incarnation.
Boy, that's pretty interesting. You say that humanity is at its end game. Which brings me to ask you if we can discuss these terms a little more. Service to others and
Mhm.
service to self. What exactly do these terms mean?
In a nutshell, service to others, those are people that have made a decision to realign with the creator, to drop their false identity, to drop their ego, to realize that the benefit of the whole is the way that they want to be. They want to be reunified with the creator. They want to have that sense of being back with source, of stability, of love, of clearness, of clarity. Those that go towards service to self, as the word implies, their priority is themselves. They seek money, power, dominance over others. Their own gains outweigh anyone that they have to subjugate or kill or steal from or hurt. As long as they get ahead, the collateral damage is irrelevant. So that is their trajectory, and that is further away from the sense of unity and oneness. That is the path they take. So as a result, as you go up the evolutionary chain, so to speak, through the densities, they become more and more isolated. Because in order to get to the top, right, the top executive of a company, the top dictator of a country, they have to suppress those below them that are trying to take their job, to take their position. So they have to scheme and steal and maim and hurt those that are trying to get their power, as if there isn't enough to go around. So that is their mindset, that is their goal. And so the collateral damage along the way becomes irrelevant. And you can see this played out in your governments all across the world. It's fairly obvious. And so that in a nutshell is the difference between service to self and service to others.
Well, and this show, of course, is all about service to others, and speaking to friends like you and many of my colleagues, there's a growing portion of these service to other people, like Aaron and Dean and so many other beautiful other people. And I think this is a saving grace for humanity, and it goes back to that choice. But I continue on this little theme here. Evidently, it seems as if the humans and other entities that have controlled the power, money, and religions of the world are members of this service to self segment. How and why did they come into power on Earth in the first place?
What had happened was that many service to other beings, such as your Jesus, your Buddha, those of Ra of Egypt, other groups have come forward throughout your history to present ideas to help lift humanity, to present these ideas of oneness, of unity, of generosity, of compassion and caring. That was their mission, if you will, their goal. Unfortunately, the timeframes of your Earth experience that they chose to make themselves incarnate in were not ready for that type of information. And so what had happened was that type of information became hoarded by those that ruled the land at the time, that ruled the empires. And so they hoarded that information and then they used it against their people. They said, this God came to me and they told me that, oh, well, they didn't mention the gold and the money part, but we're just going to throw that in there. So yes, they want you to be good, nice, but you got to give us gold and you got to give us money, because otherwise they're going to come back and kill you. And you're going to go to this place called hell, and bad things are going to happen. So you better listen to me. So can you see how this distortion of this knowledge that was revolutionary, so to speak, for their time, it got very distorted and it became very hoarded. And so throughout history, they gained more and more control because it induced such a level of fear within their population that their population didn't know any different. It wasn't that they were stupid, they were just ignorant. They didn't have any other sort of ideas, or they didn't have an internet to bounce these ideas off of people across the world. They were very limited in the access to information that they had, and the few that did have it really distorted it for their own benefit. And so that has perpetuated throughout all of your history, as you can see as you look back through your historical records.
Wow, the history of mankind, and not even mentioning any other races, star races, is just insane. As a matter of fact, I've had guests, and even it's stated in A Course in Miracles that the world is insane. Oh, man.
Well, that depends upon your definition of sanity, but it has had its challenges. It's had its challenges for sure. But you can see there through your history the distortion of many great ideas that have been presented, how they became distorted throughout the time and through the history. Because many people, for example, back in your time of Jesus and Buddha and some of these other people, many people couldn't read or write. And so they had to rely on these scholars at the time that did have the ability to do these things to write it down. And so when they did that, they were able to kind of tweak it here and maybe leave a few verses out here, or sort of, well, I know that so-and-so said this, but maybe if we make it sound like that, then more people will listen to us and give us more money and more land. Yeah, let's do that. So that's sort of how the manipulation begins. And then it just gets magnified generation after generation after generation. And then with that, you perpetuate the sense of fear that, yes, if you don't do this, you're going to go to this bad place and burn in what you call hell. And, all these horrible things are going to happen. And so people get scared and they become afraid to question it. And then if they do question it, well, then there are serious ramifications.
Well, there is, as we already mentioned, a growing segment of humankind that is waking up to the fact that everyday life is controlled by this small, powerful service to self cadre of the world's population. Now, I know you're not predicting the future, but do you think there's going to be a time when the majority of the people on Earth finally make the realization of this and just stop obeying these people?
There's going to be a bifurcation in the population. There's going to be a large majority that are going to reject these current ideas and these current systems that have been in place for eons of your time. And they're going to make great effort to change those systems. And those that are ahead, those that run those systems are either going to have to modify their beliefs and change their day-to-day business, so to speak, or they're going to either be eradicated from power or they're going to choose to go elsewhere. So that's one trajectory. The other portion of the population, this is the choice we're speaking of, the other portion of the population that chooses to hold on to those ideas and still play and participate in the, okay, you're the head boss, you're the head honcho, you're the head god, and I'll just do whatever you tell me, and I'm going to be, follow you till the end. They're going to go to a different version of Earth, and that's fine. There's no right, there's no wrong. The universe is very objective. In whatever you want to do, it will support you. And terms good and bad, evil, good, those are terms that are applied to any situation by humanity. So the universe will support you whichever way you throw your energy. So people that want to continue on that trajectory will go to a different version of Earth that continues on that path. And those that choose not to will go to a different version of Earth that continues on the path towards unification with the Creator. So there's no right or wrong per se, but those are choices that kind of need to be made, because you've been flipping and flopping as a third density experience here on Earth. You've been going back and forth. And so now people are starting to really choose, and you see this in your day-to-day news and activities. And, why did so-and-so pull out again and shoot all these people? It makes no sense. Well, as we stated before, the energies are incompatible. And those that are, saying, hey, let's go ahead and let's work on this ecological system and make it better. And so more and more people are grouping to heal the Earth and go that way. So there's going to be this more of a division within the population, but ultimately the Earth is going to bifurcate into one or the other. And this is what we speak of.
Very, very interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of filtering all this. This is pretty amazing. Now, I heard you mention on one of your chatting with the Arcturians, where that Dean hosts, that soon humankind will be in contact more and more visibly with beings from other star systems, et cetera, et cetera. Is this where the critical thinking comes in? Because some of those beings are going to be service to self, and some are service to the others, right? But we have to decide.
Yes, absolutely. And this is why we reiterate in our previous chats that we have had with our friend Dean, is that people need to start tuning into their own intuition. You need to stop looking at your gadgets and your TVs, and you need to look up into the sky. You need to contemplate. You need to figure out who you are as a person without all these external noise, without all this TV and phones and things ringing and buzzing. You need to figure out who you are as an individual, so that when you are presented with new ideas and potentially new beings that you've never seen before, there's no Nat Geo that's going to say, oh, we know everything about this type of being, or there's not going to be a Google search. There may be, but is the information correct? You don't know. So this is why you have to evaluate the information that's being presented to you and not be so reactionary to you. Don't be so reactionary to it. You need to evaluate, is this true for me? Does this make sense? Does this being that I've never seen before, that has all these neat gadgets and really interesting things, don't get caught up in all of that. You need to say, well, that's a neat gadget, but why did your society feel the need to create that? What you need to ask the why behind things. Why did you create this? Why did your society feel you needed this? Why are you here? For one thing, weren't you happy on your own planet? Why are you here? These are things that need to be asked. And that's the critical thinking. So with anything, don't get so enamored with, the gadget and the wording and this and that, but sift through it. And does the information make sense? Does it resonate with you? Does it say, yeah, you know what, that makes sense to me, or I'm not so sure. And as we've stated before, that's the same with what we tell anybody. If what we're saying doesn't resonate with you, then leave it behind. If it does, then take it with you. It's the same with any information you're presented with. If it doesn't resonate with you, then leave it behind to take what does. And so, we're not saying we're the be all end all of any subject matter by any means. We are just presenting information, but we urge you to use your own critical thinking and to recognize your own power that has been so taken away and eroded from you over millennia of your time due to these institutions that have manipulated very good information for their own benefit. And so your own sense of power has been so eroded away and taken away that you sort of lost or forgotten who you are as a soul, as an individual. And that's what you need to get back to, so that when you are presented with new ideas and beings you don't recognize, you're going to have your own internal guidance system that you need to trust. And these are things that we would highly recommend that you start investigating and practicing with now, if you haven't done so already.
I'm so glad you brought up this term critical thinking, because right now here on Earth, that probably seems like a foreign language to somebody. What does that mean? Along with the word integrity. But again, I'm pretty good at shifting gears here. I am really interested in healing and self-healing. So I would like to find out more about your healing chambers that Erin calls a pod. I've also heard the term med beds. How do they work?
Are you referring to what she terms the pod, for
Yes.
example? Yeah, we do have craft. Most beings, do have some sort of craft, because you have to remember that coming from our particular density, our energy is much lighter. It's much less confined, less constrained. And so to come down into your density, it's a very heavy existence. So we do have to have some sort of physical mechanism, if you will. But essentially what it is it's just, as Erin humorously stated, we would not call it a tanning bed. However, this is her humor that we do incorporate. It does resemble somewhat of a tanning bed, but what it is essentially is it takes the human body in and it realigns the energy fields. And so what in doing that, it sort of stimulates different cell growth and sort of eliminates toxins, and it just rebalances the energy. But again, it's not just a chemical physical change that has to occur. Primarily, most healing occurs on a spiritual level, on your etherical body, your spiritual body, the energy that you hold within you. And that energy is based upon your thoughts, beliefs, biases, prejudices, what you think. That is your energy field, and that's what you hold into you. So you need to be able to balance that. And so from an external source, whether it be us with the pod or your doctors or your physicians, the healing comes internally. It's just you can have external support, but it's you ultimately that heals yourself. So for her, when we brought her to our pod, because she was ill for a while, and we were able to help her with that. But again, you have to do your part too. And that's the other thing, is that humanity needs to sort of step up a little bit and start taking some initiative. Things aren't just going to happen for you. You need to put forth effort. You need to invest in your own well-being. You can't just take a pill. You can't just talk to a doctor. You can't just get this new thing, patch or whatever drug to put in your system and it'll all be better. You have to invest your own time and energy to heal yourself. And this is why many of your people get sick and stay sick, because they don't investigate all aspects of illness and all the aspects to heal. And so what we are saying is that our pod facilitates these things, but again, the facilitation can only go so far. It is you as an individual that you have to heal yourself from inside out. External sources can help, but that true healing has to come from your own internal energy source, so to speak.
Well, everything you say confirms my belief that humans already have the ability to self-heal. And so, as you stated, most illnesses and injuries are spiritually based. So if we understand that, we already have the power because we are one with the Creator, and Creator all is all that is. So yeah, it seems logical to me.
Yes, yes, it is. And again, as we have stated previously, and just a few moments of your time ago, that many of these sense of power and healing and integrity and moving forward with your own life has been eroded away by all of these institutions that you have given your power away. You choose to participate in that. And so as a result, you need to take responsibility for your contribution to your present status, whether it be your own physical well-being or your own governments or societies or whatever the case may be. You participate in that as well. So it is also self-responsibility that goes into a lot of these things too, which many people don't like to hear. So you need to take some self-responsibility for your own healing as well as your own sort of evolutionary journey on a spiritual level. It's not just going to be handed to you. You do have the power, you do have the ability. It's just that through your history, you have been taught otherwise. And those are very difficult barriers to break down and break through because it's scary. Because many people are so ingrained with fear that, oh my gosh, if I speak out or if I disagree with this horrible dictator, I'm going to be killed. Maybe, but you don't know that. If you get enough of you together, it may not be such an issue. But again, it's that overwhelming sense of fear with anything, whether you're diagnosed with an illness or you have a dictator for a ruler, or there's some ecological disaster, whatever it may be. You have the power and the ability within you to heal yourself and to propel yourself forward, but it has to come from inside of you as well as from external sources.
And not just only in America, but also throughout the world, the medical industry has become almost like what the term the military industrial complex. Every hospital has construction cranes around them and is growing larger and larger. And even the entrainment continues through the media. I listen to baseball games, and in the commercials comes up for the latest cancer institute. We're going to save you and do this. And so people believe more and more and more, and the medical industries continue to gain control over the people's thoughts that we need them to heal us, and yet mankind has the ability to heal themselves.
Right, right. This is very true. But for many of your peoples, this is a relatively novel concept. People say, "Oh, I've heard of that," or "Oh, that's interesting," or "Oh, gosh, that must have been a miracle." Well, it's not. It's only a miracle from your perspective because it's not something that it's not something you invest your time or energy in. It is something that you see as something that's occurring outside of you, and that's not the case. The case is that those healings and those oh, I was sick and I'm suddenly better, I couldn't walk and now I can. That's an internal process, and that doesn't happen overnight. You don't get sick overnight. Illnesses don't just suddenly you wake up one day and all of a sudden you have stage 4 cancer. It doesn't work like that. Those diseases take a long time to progress. And by the time they manifest, by the time it really gets your attention, you are very often in a very bad way. And so many times diseases are forcing you to sit still, to sit with yourself. You can't walk, you can't get up, you can't go to work, you can't go to your friend's house, you can't go to the movies, whatever it may be. It is forcing you to sit still and examine yourself. And only in extreme cases, it will get to that point to force people as an individual to look at themselves and begin to make those changes if they choose. But again, that has to come from within. Now, hopefully it won't get to that point, but oftentimes it does.
Very good point. Very good point. Thank you for that. I have a question about modern technology as it is right now on Earth, specifically cell phones. It appears that the vast majority of people are addicted and controlled by their cell phone. How is this? How and why has this happened? I mean, literally everybody you walk around is just they're focused only on their cell phone and nothing outside of them. Was this planned?
It wasn't originally planned. Again, see that from our perspective, we see many of your new technologies as starting out as brilliant ideas. But the problem with a lot of many of your technologies is it's a really neat thing, and it's a really wow, this is a great idea. Wow, we can make this. We can make this happen. But again, should you? We believe there's one funny movie line, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And so again, the question is, yeah, we can make this, but what are the ramifications? Let's think this all the way through to the end. What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? Just because we can make an atomic bomb. Wow, this is great physics. This is really exciting. Wow, this is super duper. And then you blow up something massive in the desert, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute. Wow, this was really great in the lab, and it looked really neat when we were writing on the chalkboard, but we didn't think it would cause all. So you see, so just because, you can make all these things, it doesn't necessarily make it a great thing. Now, your cell phones, they have many great purposes, as have been demonstrated. You're able to communicate with friends and with family. And if you have an emergency, you can get help right away and things like that. There's nothing wrong with those things. But again, it's up to you to meter yourself. Do I want to be looking at this gadget 10 hours a day, 6 hours a day? Do I really need that? What would happen if it went away? We recall in your time, we believe it was a few of your months ago, the internet went down, and our instrument got to work, and everybody was all in a dither. Oh, did you realize that Verizon went down and AT&T went down, and oh my gosh, all my apps went out on my phone. She didn't even know what happened. I mean, she doesn't even turn her phone on. And so she just went to work, went about her business, and couldn't figure out why everybody was so worked up. And everybody was, but you know what? They still got to work. They still managed to get their coffee. They still managed to see their patients. It wasn't the end of the world. So again, you have to take again, it goes back to that self-responsibility. Do you want to be looking at this thing? I mean, we joke with our instrument because we will disclose this. We do have our permission. She tends to, I'm going to go to bed, and then she's on Instagram for like 45 minutes. So we tell her, okay, the next night, okay, I'm going to check out Instagram. So we put a little thought in her head. She doesn't like this, but we put a little thought in her head. Do you even remember what you watched last night on there? Well, no, she'll reply, no, but it was funny. But do you remember? Well, no. Well, then turn it off. So we do toy with her in that respect, but it's the same kind of thing. So yes, it's nice, and yes, it's neat, but does it need to occupy 45 minutes of your time when you could be sleeping and resting? Probably not.
We have been speaking with our friend Erin Gordon and her friends, the Arcturians, who come through here with this beautiful wisdom and love and knowledge, and we so appreciate it. And I want to thank you, my friends, for being patient with me. I'm sure I probably have asked questions that overlap each other and seem the same to you.
No,
But
not at all.
I'm going to wind up a little bit. I've got a couple more questions, but artificial intelligence seems to be on a path to controlling mankind. And is this on purpose also?
Everything is designed with purpose in mind, and not just from your own human standpoint, but on a spiritual point too. And again, part of its design, again, is to encourage your own critical thinking and your own reasoning. Do I want to interact with an artificial intelligence, or would I rather interact with a human being? So again, does an artificial intelligence, does it have its own soul, its own internal guidance system? Does it have its own intuition? Those are questions that you need to evaluate as a collective. And with whom would you rather choose to spend more time with? An artificial intelligence is going to tell you what you want to hear, or are you going to want to interact with a human that is feeling, thinking, has a soul, has emotion? And you, from our perspective, you can't necessarily place those qualities into a machine.
Very, very wise advice. Thank you. Thank you. And again, that's where the critical thinking comes in. What can a normal human being currently living in a normal 3D life in a body do right now to help make the world a happier, healthier, safer, more loving, and non-judgmental place? What can they do?
Well, we will say, this is very cliche, but we will say, start with yourself, start evaluating your own choices, decision making, and also your own reactions to things that you deem negative. Nothing is negative unless you put a meaning behind it. For example, we'll just conclude with this. If we tell you Susie likes a red dress, but Betty comes along and says, I hate a blue dress, do you think Susie's going to care? No, because she doesn't put value on that. She puts value on the other. So again, use your critical thinking and don't be reactionary. But again, look at your own internal guidance system and your own feeling, and look at people with compassion. Instead of saying, that's so horrible what they did, they shouldn't have done that. Stop and think, why did they do that? Let me look at this from an objective point of view. Did this person really start their day wanting to be mean and nasty? Probably not. So maybe there's something else going on. So maybe instead of me being reactionary back to them, maybe I need to show a little compassion, have a little pause and say, you know what? They cut me off in traffic. Not the end of the world. I'm going to go about my day and I wish them well.
Beautiful, beautiful. On my own spiritual path, I have followed that path too. So yeah, and it works. It really does work. Oh, my friends, you are so beautiful. Thank you. And what an honor to be able to talk with you. And we love what you're doing here to help humanity move to a better, beautiful, loving place. And hopefully at one point we can join in one with you and back with the Creator. And thank you. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. We applaud your effort in this field. Thank you for your time. Did I deviate? Sorry.
Erin is back.
Takes me a minute.
Oh, yeah, you came back pretty quickly. So.
Okay.
Now, Erin, do you remember anything that they said, or do you have to go back and listen?
Not really. No. not really.
Well, we had a far-ranging discussion here, and it was exciting. And I'll send you the video so you can listen or watch it.
Yeah, and Dean will attest. I'm a hand talker, so if I do a lot of this, they do a lot of that. So
also, you kind of twisted in your seat about.
Yeah, I tend to move. I don't know. Maybe we'll put little breaks on this next time, but I tend to.
So, Erin, it's been great having you on the show. I know, as we mentioned at the start, this is kind of a coming out, your first time really putting this out, other than your chatting with the Arcturians show that you do with Dean. Are you open to having people connect and communicate with you? And if so, how can they do that?
Yeah, I would say probably just go through Dean's website to connect with us.
Okay, and I will put that website up in the show notes here, and I believe that's ddeangraves.org. I think that's it.
Yeah, and we can resend it to you with clarification.
I'll do that for you. Wow, just mind blowing. This is awesome. So Erin and Dean is off to the side helping out, but thank you. Gosh, that was awesome. Thank you very much. You're amazing. Thank you for being.
All right, Carl, thank you. I appreciate your time and interest.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.